today that is a little bit different than the kind of improvements we often talk about with processes or physical spaces. And this improvement is an improvement to how I manage my time. So, any of us who are kind of in the admin or accounting or marketing or management or um, kind of support team space know that we've got a lot of things going on. If you're like me, then typically I'll have something like 3 to 4 meetings on many days, sometimes fewer, but typically that many. And it can be really challenging to keep track of all the things that I need to get done on projects outside of those meetings, as well as making sure that I'm following up and spending time to do what I said I would do to people while I'm having those meetings. So typically, this is what my calendar would look like. You've got a list of meetings, and then within those, there's like a Google Meet link. Some of these are in person now, but most of them are still digital. I've got some meetings internally, so like this one with Jeremy, and then I've got things like Roy Group training, which is like a management training, and then I've got some that are meetings with people outside of our company that would maybe be on Zoom or Google Meet, or rather Microsoft Teams. So meetings everywhere. So I decided to spend a little bit of time thinking about my to-do list and how to schedule in some times that my days didn't get overwhelmed with just meeting and not having time to sit and think, to learn, and to spend time on my projects. Similar at first glance to how I had my week set up before and how I was using it for meetings. But I've made a number of improvements or changes this week that are helping me just to get a better glance at what I'm doing and to have a little bit more control over my time. So the first thing you might notice is that instead of almost everything being pink or red, I've kind of color coded things to make it easier just to remind myself of what my day is going to look like. So first off, I've got these blue blocks. So those blue blocks are not meetings. They're actually times I've set aside for working. So you can see that some of those have what I plan already to do in them already set in there. So I've got, for example, tomorrow I'm going to work on our insurance. I've got a generous amount of time set aside for that. But then later on, I've got another hour time block set aside, and that time is not currently earmarked for anything. It's probably just going to be generally to work on items from my to-do list, catching up on my emails, working on asanas and different things people have asked me to do. In addition to that, I've got these lilac or kind of light purple colored meetings. So any of those that I have, and I have about 5 or 6 of those a week, are one-on-ones with our management team or with our accounting team, just to check in on where they're at and what's going on. I generally have those for an hour. Sometimes they take a bit longer. Sometimes they're a bit shorter. Then I have these dark purple meetings. So anytime I have a dark purple meeting, that signifies a meeting that's with more than one person internally. So I've got my daily huddle here. And then I've got a finance meeting with our accounting team. I've got a marketing and sales meeting with a couple of people. And then I've got a numbers meeting with a couple of people. So that kind of isn't every day on the big meetings, but just kind of helps me to keep track of when I know I've got something. And typically I need to prepare for those meetings and spend a bit of time. I've got green. So green for me means that that's something that's external. So it's Roy Group training, or it's with our web developers, or it's a networking meeting that I go to each week. So that just kind of helps me know if I've got something coming up that's an external thing. And then I've got this yellow. So I only have one on my calendar right now. Yellow means I have to leave the office. So I wanted that to really stick out to remind me that usually for something like that, I'm going to have to prepare and make sure that I leave at the right time. So at the beginning of the day, it's easy for me to see, oh my gosh, yeah, I got to leave the office for some specific reason today. So this is not the only way that I organize myself. Obviously, I'm using email, I'm using Asana, and I also use some written to-do lists. And in my to-do lists, I typically try and review them and categorize them, whether I need to make a decision, follow up with someone, schedule some time, or consult with someone. So this is just one tool using the calendar that helps me to try to stay organized better. And everything is an experiment, so I'm sure it's not going to work perfectly, but just thinking differently about how I use my time and hopefully reducing my waste.